got me running from an angry mob. I might have made a bit of a rookie error and shared my opinions on the internet. I know, really dumb mistake. Say, any of y'all remember Sonic Mania?
Hey! There he is!
Oh shit!
That's a lost invite, isn't that bad?
Come on,
Alpha, got you!
You're telling...
Yeah, good old Sonic Mania. 2017's letter to classic Sonic gameplay created by Christian Whitehead and the team at Headcanon. Shortly after the success of that game and the lack of a sequel that came from it, Christian went and co-founded his own indie studio called Evening Star, and in February of this year we were graced with their first game, Penny's Big Breakaway. Having dipped his toes into games closer to Sonic's 2D roots, I guess it only makes sense that the first original IP from this company would take inspiration from the 3D side of things. For better and for worse. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a deep dive into Penny's Big Breakaway. Penny's Big Breakaway follows a young street performer named Penny. Upon seeing recruitment ads for the Emperor's Gala, Penny decides to show off her yo-yo skills in the hopes she can finally make it big. On her way to the gala, she encounters a mysterious string that grants her yo-yo sentience. After very rudely cutting in front of all the other people waiting to audition for the gala, Penny makes her big debut in front of the Emperor and Judge Rufus. Despite dazzling both them and the crowd with her yo-yo prowess, she isn't prepared for her sentient yo-yo friend to go rogue. He rips off the Emperor's robes, exposing him in front of a crowd of people. Penny is deemed a criminal by the judge and is ordered to be arrested. She makes a mad dash out of the auditions, and the game begins proper. While the game isn't exactly light on story after this point, it never expands beyond this relatively simple premise. Penny doesn't ever speak or make any noises, but she's super expressive, and the side characters you meet are fairly charming. Gives me vibes of a less cynical Rareware game where the whimsy is taken at face value. The gameplay of Penny's Big Breakaway can best be described as a fusion of 3D Sonic and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Your job is to make it to the end of the level using Penny's robust moveset to string together massive combos and rack up as many points as possible, while avoiding capture from the King's Penguin army. You've got your platformer basics like a double jump, but there's a lot more to it than that. Penny can throw yo-yo to attack either with the press of the button or movement of the right stick, and from there you're granted new options for either mobility or extended offense. While grounded, you can spin the right stick to have Penny twirl around. This can be done indefinitely and allows her to both attack around her constantly or interact with screws to progress through the level. Pressing the button again or moving the right stick in the same direction will cause Penny to dash in the direction yo-yo was thrown in, granting an instant burst of speed. This can be done either on the ground or in the air, so it has use for both gaining speed and taking shortcuts through the level. If you hold the button or stick while airborne, Penny can swing from yo-yo. This has actual physics to it, so not only do you need to correctly time your release to get the result you want, but the swing is also affected by your speed going into it. Anyone who was paying attention to that previous move can probably figure out what that entails. Penny also has access to what is essentially a spin dash. You hop on top of yo-yo, and by holding the button from a standstill, you could rev it up to increase your speed. Going down hills increases your speed, and going up them decreases it. Pressing the spin dash button in midair gives you access to the gravity drop. Penny lowers yo-yo below her, and if he touches the ground, then she zips on top of him and instantly begins riding him. This is also affected by momentum, but it feels like the gravity drop is affected by inclines a lot more than the regular dash. The dash is capable of briefly carrying you across hazards such as water and lava, and as long as you're riding it, your combo won't end. Chaining these moves together and perfecting a route throughout the stage are the main way you'll be trying to reach each stage's target score, but they aren't enough on their own. You'll need to be on the lookout for coins and stage interactables. Collecting coins slowly builds up a point multiplier that takes effect at the end of your combo, maxing out at 5 times. Stage interactables are objects that allow you to string together your combo between large stretches and provide you with bonus points. There's universal ones like poles, trampolines, and tight ropes, but there's also unique ones at stages such as diving boards, trumpet tubes, and water spouts. Each stage also has 3 collectible platinum coins hidden within them. They start out easy to find, but slowly get more and more hidden as the game goes on. Real shocking statement, I know. Things get harder as the game goes on. Collecting them all on a stage gives you a point bonus, but they can also be unused to unlock bonus stages from the level select screen. In addition to the coins, there are also 3 dilemmas in each stage that Penny can choose to solve. These are little mini-missions that are given by the citizens of Macaroon. They range from collecting a certain amount of items, bringing an item to a specific point, getting a certain amount of points in a specific area, or other more unique objectives depending on the stage. The setup for some of these can be pretty funny, like committing corporate sabotage by stealing a tomato soda recipe, or delivering soap to some guy's stinky friend, or just collecting a bunch of sodas before they all go flat. There's also unique dialogue whenever you fail them, so these missions have a lot of flavor to them. Finishing these all gives you a point bonus at the end of the stage. Instead of traditional enemies getting in your way, Penny has to deal with the Emperor's penguin guards. Penguins are scattered around the stage or will appear when reaching certain sections. When they see Penny, they'll immediately give chase, and upon getting close enough will jump on top of her, slowing her down. If 5 of them get on top of you, you'll be caught and take damage. And then finally, we have the Buster bonus. The end goal of each stage is this 3-layered tower. Landing on it completes the stage and starts a QTE minigame where you perform yo-yo tricks. The section you land on determines the amount of tricks you perform and the point bonus you get upon succeeding. You don't need to succeed to finish the stage, but I recommend succeeding both for the point bonus and to see all the neat tricks Betty can do. You go, girl. You also get point bonuses for speed, not taking damage, long combos, etc. Reaching the target score in each stage unlocks a piece of concept art in the gallery. Helping this gameplay foundation along is some pretty solid level design. The main campaign is overall a pretty comfortable ride, with most of the challenge coming from trying to reach the point requirements. The gimmicks usually aren't too intrusive and blend together with the level design very well, with a few exceptions. There's a metric ton of half-pipes and ramps littered around that allow you to make constant use of speed and momentum, and it also kind of feels like a 3D Mario game with how creative you can get when traversing the stage. Speaking of 3D Mario, the unlockable bonus stages give off serious Sunshine vibes with the more surreal aesthetic and less organic feeling stage design. The stages themselves are also a treat for the eyes. We've got more basic stage themes like a city and construction site, a snow level and a beach level, but then we've got stuff like a massive bathhouse, a scientific complex in the desert, and a fancy restaurant and a volcano. The entire game is bursting with a surrealist aesthetic that just says, this was made by the people who made Sonic Mania. The game's graphics themselves aren't amazing. I think the character models are a bit overly shiny, and in in-game cutscenes, the animation can look fairly amateurish at times. But the 2D cutscenes have this wonderful painted aesthetic, and the whole game is covered in colors that just pop. And holy shit, that soundtrack. A joint effort between T. Lopes and Sean Biala leads to some amazing music work. I've been playing it throughout the video, but I just want to take a moment to highlight my favorite song of the game, the lyric Birds. If you've been enjoying the samplings that I've played throughout the video, I highly recommend listening to the soundtrack on Spotify. It is so good. But for all the good that's going on in this game, it definitely has some aspects that scream first indie project. First off, this game can be buggy as fuck sometimes. I did 2 playthroughs, one on Switch and one on PC, and I swear to God, something has to have gone horribly wrong with the Switch version. On PC, I clipped through the level geometry exactly twice and had a few weird collision interactions. But on the Switch version, I clipped through the stage on numerous occasions and just had some overall weird issues. I don't have footage since I played the Switch version away from home, but the trumpet tubes in the Editorium world just refused to work properly on Switch. I had a whole write-up about them not working, but when I played on PC, I had 0 issues with them. I'm not sure if that was actually a problem or if that was just me being bad at the game. And then there's also some issues I have with the final boss specifically, but I'll talk about that a bit later. Depth perception is also a semi-prevalent issue, although that may be more of a personal failing than an actual issue with the game. The game works entirely with fixed camera angles since the right stick is used for slinging yo-yo around, and sometimes that makes it difficult to judge distance or your exact height, which makes certain sections more frustrating than they've really needed to be. There's also the power-ups. There are 4 of them in the game. The burger, the cake, the chili pepper, and the durian. Each one of them enhances a different part of your kit. The burger turns yo-yo into a wrecking ball capable of destroying breakable objects, the whirling wafer makes it so spinning launches you into the air, and the Endurian is your standard invincibility power-up. These 3 are just kinda alright, they don't see a lot of use, and they don't fuck with anything too bad. And then we have the chili pepper. This enhances your spin dash and makes it capable of going further distances and riding up walls. This thing has awful feeling controls, and it comes up way more frequently than the rest of the power-up lineup. It's mostly alright, but God forbid you miss a collectible in a pepper section. You might be able to go back and grab it, but good fucking luck getting this thing to turn the way you want. The boss selection isn't exactly stellar. They suffer from simplistic designs that fail to present you with any real interesting challenges, and in a few cases suffer from some outright irritating design. They have some unique mechanics and attacks that prevent them from blending together, but a lot of it just feels like running around and waiting for an opening. Very rarely does the game present you with a meaningful challenge. The first boss, Sheila, is probably the most interesting conceptually. Her attacks are simple, but instead of directly fighting her, you're trying to avoid her attacks so you can tighten the screws on her ship. In between each screw, you're thrown off the boat and need to catch up while avoiding oncoming fire. Unfortunately, her status as first boss prevents her from being super challenging, but I think I'd be more receptive to the bosses if they were designed more like her and took better advantage of Penny's platforming prowess. Mr. Q is the first victim of this game's boss design. He dashes at you, he stomps, you play tennis, and you make him fall prey to your devastating finishing move like it's your 5th grade squash championship. There is one unique aspect to this fight. Whenever you hit him, you need to knock his head into the pockets on the sides and corners of the arena. With each hit you land, there are more heads to knock around and added barriers. It only really becomes an actual problem on the last set of heads since it's kinda hard to get them all in one go. Luckily, you don't need to get them all in one go, as once you fill the pocket, it stays filled regardless of whether you hit the other heads in the sequence. The first fight against Emperor Eddie at the bathhouse is the most criminally boring boss fight of all time. All of his attacks are just variations of, "I'm gonna run at you!" There's cannon fire hailing onto the arena as well, but it's piss easy to dodge. Eventually Eddie tires himself out and then you attach the yo-yo to the handle on his back and fling him out of the arena. Real shit, I beat this boss by just flying around in a circle and never took damage. Not even falling out of the arena actually does any damage to you. The penguin robot in Industria is similarly disinteresting, but it has its own unique issue. The gist of this fight is that you dodge his attacks until a magnet drops, and then you use a magnet on a tractor beam to hit it. There's conveyor belts that are supposed to make the fight harder, but if you just air dash in a circle around the arena, both the conveyors and the boss's attacks are non-factors. There is one attack that can be tough to dodge where he slams his head on the ground and drags it across the arena. The depth perception is so poor that I genuinely couldn't tell where I needed to stand for this, but once you realize you just need to stick to the edge of the arena, he should literally never hit you. Judge Rufus plays his hand a bit closer to Sheila, and would be my favorite boss if it wasn't for one specific thing. The idea behind this boss is to platform up to his podium while avoiding lightning strikes. Once you reach him, you need to steal his gavel and break the weights on the arena. With each broken weight, the lightning strikes become more frequent. This is another strong concept. Trying to avoid lightning while breaking the weights is fun in theory, and the difficulty escalation is actually noticeable for once, but the hit detection on these weights is so bad. It prevents me from really enjoying this boss and makes it more frustrating than it needs to be. Now, most of the bosses simply suffer from poor variety and uninteresting design, but they're also not very long and they don't have any egregiously bad design. But then we have the race against Clone Penny and the final boss, which I consider to be the two standout bosses, and not for good reasons. There's nothing wrong with the idea behind the race, but for some strange reason they also slapped a coin requirement onto it. You can speed ahead and absolutely blitz the clone, which is what anyone who has experience with this setup would do. But if you don't collect enough coins, then you're forced to redo the entire race from the start. All this really does is expose how piss easy the race actually is. I guess they added it to try and make things more intense, since gathering coins requires you to slow down and thus let the clone get closer to you. But in practice, it's still not very challenging and just makes the race more annoying than anything else. The final boss is kind of a culmination of a lot of the previous issues. His attacks aren't very interesting, he just kind of runs at you a lot and occasionally throws some stuff into the arena. There's two ways to damage him. One is waiting for one of his dashing attacks, where he tires himself out, letting you hit him, and the other is hitting a bomb into him when he throws junk into the ring, which once again highlights the depth perception issue. Aiming it correctly is a pain in the ass, and you don't get a lot of time to do so. And once you knock him down, you do a QT and begin the second phase, where Taboo fucking betrays you! Seriously, I understand that they wanted a spectacular show, but there was a very real chance that this whole stunt could have just fucking killed Penny. I guess that's the risk in showbiz. The second phase consists of a ride up a constantly disappearing road where you need to avoid penguin balls being flung down at you. When you reach the end of the road, Judge Rufus gives you a whirling wafer and you need to avoid projectiles while flying up to the Eddie construct to unscrew its crown. I mentioned that I had some specific issues with this boss on Switch earlier. On PC, I beat this boss on my first try. Maybe it was luck, maybe it was experience, but on Switch, I had to retry this boss so many goddamn times. It's not really that hard, but I swear to God something is wrong with the Chili Pepper Road on Switch. I had multiple times where I would be holding in the direction I needed to go, and Penny would just randomly lose speed and I would die. It's a pretty sour conclusion to what I think is an overall very solid game. Penny's Big Breakaway has a lot to offer for fans of Sonic and games that are more arcadey in nature. The gameplay is flawed in some areas, but it's super fun and the overall game design is solid with just a few snags. It's got a colorful and charming aesthetic, even if some of the 3D cutscenes have very amateurish animation work at times, but that's offset by the wonderfully painted 2D cutscenes. I think for the asking price, Penny's Big Breakaway is absolutely worth your time, although it's not exactly asking for a lot of time since the game is only like 45 hours. You may have to put up with some jank, but I pretty much grew up on jank games, so I'm biased in that regard. I can't wait to see what Eveningstar puts out next. Hopefully, we can see them combine their talent for game design with just a little bit more polish.